Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Today we have alarm clock, I guess we'll say, that we're going to take a look at and see if we can fix. Right now I have noticed that it's wound up, but it does not tick. And it looks like it's been sitting somewhere moist for a little while. But I do believe it might be a brass clock or a copper clock. Anyway, let's take a look at this clock. So this is the clock we have. Anyway, it's made in West Germany, it says down here. It's got some corrosion. I'll just call it rust, but it's a corrosion right along the bottom here. It does have a nice either copper or brass color to it. And the alarm, it does beat back and forth, doesn't touch the bells, and it looks like it's been bent. And not positive how to get this off, but I have a feeling this here back pan will just pry off of there, even though it's pretty well corroded. So let me take these knobs off and see what it's going to take to get this open. So it's been quite a struggle, and I was almost ready to junk this thing. I went ahead and took the bells off, the alarm shut off, and the legs, thinking maybe that was part of the framework that kept everything together, and it had nothing to do with it because I see it started sliding out. This here, like I originally figured, was just popped in there like an old coffee can, metal coffee can or something, but all this rust was just holding it. So I took clock oil and I dumped all around the outside of this thing, let it soak a bit, and I beat it a few more times using the screwdriver and hitting this way. And finally, I got a little bit of a crack showing, and now I think possibly this thing is ready to come apart. Maybe. There we go. And besides being dirty as heck, the rust coming through the hole, the movement actually doesn't look that bad. Let's see here. Let me see how I'm going to get this out because of that alarm there. So it looks like all I have to do is pry this out. And once I get so far, I can get the hammer through the hole because it's a odd shaped hole, I guess we'll call it. I'm going to have to clean all that up so it goes back together. This here has the spring there. And what I think I'm going to do, this I can take apart because it does have the nuts, but I'm going to go ahead and oil just this one side and see how that works out. On oiling this side, I might be able to, well, the hands are already loose, pull the hands off. It's got these tabs here. There's 1, 2, 3 tabs. I should be able to lift it up and pull that way and be able to oil it. Anyway, let me just oil the one side for now and see how that works out for me. So I oiled this side, and I reached in and oiled all the other pivots so I wouldn't have to take the face off. And it's not ticking real fast, but it probably hadn't ran forever. So I'm just going to see if I can keep this thing running just the way it is and see if it starts ticking a little bit faster. Otherwise, I'd imagine in the meantime I'm going to start cleaning this rust up on here. all this rust on here. I'm going to start cleaning up, and once I get the rust off, I'll go ahead and see about shining these up. This here looks like it's a gold tone spray paint on this silver or just steel band that goes around the dial. And of course you got your chopped out glass that's quite chipped here and there, but by the looks of it, it still fits in there to where you don't see all those chips, and the chips don't matter as long as it protects the dial. Sure glad I didn't change out my sheet yet. It's filthy now with all that rust. Well, I've had this run for 2 or 3 hours, and it seems to be ticking just fine. Like I said, I re-oiled it, and so now all I need to do is finish the case, see how that turns out. This does have, I don't know if you notice, it's got the second hand on it with the seconds there, and this up here would be where you'd set your alarm. So I lightly wipe down the face of this, and whether you notice or not, this does have the glow paint on here, including in the hands. I haven't cleaned up the hands, I'm almost afraid to, but I might go ahead and touch them up. Otherwise, this thing seems to be ticking away just fine. It's been a few days now, and I guess I'm happy with it. So my next step, I guess, would be to clean the glass. This here was really rusted, and so I went ahead and took sandpaper and sanded it. This here, I don't believe is brass. It might have a brass finish, but you can see steel inside there. But I went ahead, after I got that done, I waxed it to try to seal it. So I got the movement in. It took a little bit to get this through. You have to get it through part way and then get this rod to slide over so the rest of it will come up through the bigger hole. It's here for the bells to hook on to. And this is what holds the movement in. The two arms that hold the bell, and then the legs that go to the clock will hold it in also. So for the bell hammer, this wire was kind of bent out of shape. Originally it wouldn't even hit the bells, it'd just flutter back and forth. So I had to move it closer in so it hit the bells. And then it was hitting one bell harder than the other side, so it had to be leveled, as in bent just a little bit more to be able to reach each bell. And so now it seems to work a lot better. So we'll set the bells off, or the alarm off. Besides a little bit annoying, it seems to be doing its job. And so by the looks of it, I can take this winder back off again and set the back on to this clock. So as we all know, this clock was set outside or something, very rusty, and to get this off it took some doing, taking a screwdriver after this being oiled and just kept popping it until it finally broke loose. And the clock was close to going to the dump because it's almost not worth it, but I still wanted to get in to see what the movement was like, and this thing's ticking right away. So if you don't mind how, we'll say, bad it looks, it's going to be a good clock again, especially if you collect these clocks. Now there it is, there's a bump which is supposed to wedge this, but it already wedges. That's going to be an extra wedge, I guess. It's lined up with the bell, but there's no marking on the case. So let me go ahead and get the winders on and we'll be right back. So this part needs to go back on. What it's for is to shut the alarm off so you don't have to wait for it to wind down. It had this nasty screw, and if I can get it back on, I'm going to do that. Otherwise, this clock's going to be one where you wouldn't wind it up any further than how long you want it to ring. Lever on. And we'll take it off, but I wound it up again so it'll go off. So now it's all back together again. This clock was advertised as a copper clock, in which it has the copper coloring for what they've sprayed onto the brass to give it that antique look. And which I'm sure is still considered a brass clock, even with that on there. But this is how it's advertised through the GW. This clock didn't cost me very much. I didn't want to get carried away on it because the only reason why I bought it is because it looked like a nice brass clock, not realizing how much rust was on here that we'll say can't get cleaned up. But like I say, now we got a clock that runs, and it has the second hand and the hand to tell what time you want to get up. So here they have a clock kind of like mine, except mine has the second hand on it, and they want $60 for this clock. Sometimes they go a little bit wild on that. Most of your alarm clocks don't cost that much if that's what you want to do, is get into collecting alarm clocks. And if you're going to collect them, collect the style or the look that you like. Don't just get any clock that's willy-nilly. So I hope you learned something, because we'll say I did, because I've never worked on an alarm clock before. They're just as simple as your smaller clocks that I've worked on too. And so the main thing is worry about the, I don't know what they call this, hairspring wire, I think it's called. So it'll tick. Those, as long as you, let's say, get a variety of them, if yours happens to be broke, then you'd find one that will fit over the shaft of that makes it tick. And if they don't quite fit, you can use a diamond brooch to open the hole up to make it fit. You just have to remember, don't go too far because you need it snug. And if you happen to go too far, use a little fingernail polish and let it dry. Just make sure you got it where you need it. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe because it's free. And if you learned something fantastic, give me a thumbs up, or if you enjoyed the video. And until next time, God bless.